Hello, I'm Robert, voluntary fact checker, helping if you're scared of many things. And this is to help you understand why these drones that flew out of Ukraine war into Poland, why they're completely harmless. They're nothing to worry about whatsoever. And it's also nothing to worry about the countries closing down their airports so they can shoot down the drones. They do that just so that they avoid hitting the aircraft, hitting their own aircraft with their missiles. So, first of all, first thing to tell you is that this shows they're very, very common that this happens. It's really high. It's happened the very first time, I think. Go back to 10th of March. Here we are, March the 10th. And this was quite embarrassing for the Allies. So this was a Tu-141. And it flew from Ukraine through Romania, through Hungary, all the way through Croatia, and it ended up falling in the capital of Croatia called Zagreb. And we don't know if it was Ukrainian or Russian. So both sides denied, said it wasn't theirs. That's the first one in the war. Now, if we go and look more recently, let's look at 2025. And in January 2025, several Russian drones, they don't know how many, but several is more than two, surely, ended up in Romanian airspace. And then if we go and look just earlier, last month, then on the 20th, there was a Russian drone. On 25th, there was a Ukrainian drone that flew all the way to Estonia, where eventually it ran out of fuel and crashed. And it was because of Russian electronic interference. In September, there were two Russian drones. And then in September the 8th, there was another, probably Russian drone. And then finally, there were 10 or so Russian drones on September the 9th. So now, why so many this time? Well, it was a very large raid. So there were 413 were shot down, 386 got through of the drones, and some of those would be cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. And you can see nearly all of them are, just did nothing, only a few strikes, only 17 strikes out of 800, well over 800 attacks. And then at least 8 drones flew towards Poland, possibly some say 10. So this shows what was going on. Very, very confused airspace. There would be electronic warfare, there would be air defences, there'd be fighter jets flying around trying to shoot them down. There'd be all sorts of stuff going on there. And in the process, some of them would have got confused. The most likely ones to get confused are the decoys, because they don't bother to protect them. Remember, the aim of the decoys is essentially just to stay in the air for as long as possible. It's not got a target, it's not aiming for anywhere. So when it gets to wherever it's headed for, if it's there's no point in pretending to hit something, because that would immediately prove that it's a decoy. It would establish nothing. So it just keeps flying until it runs out of fuel. So so some of them, if they get confused, they just go flying off and off and off. And look, a couple of them just went flying off into Poland. Probably decoys. It could be the real thing. And then so that's how they get lost so easily. Now and how they could go flying off so easily. And it's not the first time. This is the first time. Well, not the first. This might be I think the first example of a really long distance one. And this was Israeli aircraft were attacking Syria. Syria used air defences to try and attack them back. Air defences found nothing. One of them missed, and then it should have just blown itself up or whatever, or just got. But instead, one of these air defence missiles, something got confused in it, and it went flying off just went flying on and on for 230 kilometers, and it eventually crashed into a mountain in Cyprus. So that's the sort of thing that happens quite often. There's nobody suggesting in any way that Syria was trying to target Cyprus. So this is something that happens. If Syria can hit Cyprus by mistake, Russia can hit Poland by mistake. And then why as many as 10 this time? Well, who knows? Maybe there's something there that confused them all. For instance, maybe some electronic interference around there, when some of them went the right way and some of them got confused. And notice that this is very common for, it's been happening long since before decoys, which were only introduced in 2024. The Russians, often their drones, go flying over Polish airspace, turn around and fly back into Ukraine. And maybe try to confuse the Ukrainians by coming from the direction of Poland. But anyway, for whatever reason, they've been doing that for a long time. And so Poland has always had this puzzle. If we've got these planes come flying over Poland, and most of them are going to turn around and go back and fly back to Ukraine, do we shoot them down or don't we? And so eventually it's decided this time it's going to shoot them down. And some of them do land in Poland, you see. So they don't know that they're going to fly back to Ukraine. Most of them do, but some don't. So now this is to understand the legal situation, international law. Then let's go down why they closed down the airports, first of all, in case any of you are worrying about that. Then that's just so that it's a really simple reason, that if they've got drones coming and they want to shoot them down, they're going to have drones in there, they're going to have missiles in there, they're going to have shrapnel. It's not responsible to do that when you've got passenger jets flying off. You say your plane is you're taking off and you're looking, passengers looking around and so on, and then suddenly there's shrapnel and drones flying around in all directions. You don't want that, so that's why they stopped the planes from taking off. It's not because of any risk from Russia. It was just so they wouldn't shoot down passenger jets or harm or even alarm passenger jets by a shooting war going on in the sky. That's all that is. I've answered that. I've talked about that. They get confused. I think I've talked about that. So now I just want to talk about how countries have every right to shoot down drones in their skies. So basically, what we've got here is what, as far as Poland knows, it can't tell a decoy from the real thing. It might be a 50-kilogram bomb. And that's quite a big bomb. Think about how many kilograms of sugar that is, and then imagine all that is dynamite or something. You wouldn't want something like that blowing off in your house, and they cause a significant amount of damage to a house in Ukraine if one of these drones hits it. So Russia has no right to be flying bombs over the skies of Poland. If Russia wants to fly something over the skies of Poland, it needs to ask Poland's permission. There's certain things that are permitted, especially if you fly high enough. Then there's certain things, there's different laws about what you need permission for and what kind of permission you need it for and what kind of planes and so on. But certainly you need permission to fly a bomb over another person's country. And Poland has not given Russia this permission, so Poland's got every right under international law to shoot this bomb down. And even if it wasn't a bomb, even if it's just a spy satellite, a spy drone, Poland got every right to shoot it down. It's sovereign airspace. It's just like if you go flying off you take off from France and you go flying over the UK and you haven't filed a flight plan with the UK, you can expect a couple of F-16s or F-35s to go buzz your plane and say, look, what are you doing? And tell you to turn you back and tell you to go back to France. Because you have no right to do it. So there's the example of the United States, and it shot down this Chinese balloon, which may have just been blown off course, we don't know. but the Chinese spy balloon, whether it was intentional or mistaken, but there was every right the United States had to shoot down the balloon. They didn't shoot it down until it had actually gone over all the way across the United States, because they didn't want the debris to fall on people. And then they shot down a Pika balloon, which is a tiny, tiny thing that hobbyists set flying about the size of a party balloon. And then they shot down one of those as well, which is a little bit amusing, really. But China has, and that was probably just set up by hobbyists and nothing to do with China. But anyway, the United States has every right to shoot down anything that it doesn't want to have over its skies, so long as it hasn't given permission. If it's given permission, if it's below a certain size, then it's permitted, but they have to be very small. And also, if the various other rules, I forget the rules, but they certainly Poland had every right to shoot down. So can you see that? So this does not make Poland incompetent. It's nothing to do with the war. Even if Russia, imagine the Ukraine war is completely over, and some Russian drone goes flying out of control over Poland, and if Poland thinks that this drone is a risk to it, and it's an unmanned drone, then it's got every right to shoot it down. Every country has that right. So I hope you can understand that. It doesn't make Poland incompetent in any way whatsoever. Now, I just wanted to explain now about Article 5. So I should add this section about Iceland in this. I'll do that later. I'm just about to go off to sleep, so maybe when I wake up I'll add that section. But so the people get so confused by Article 5. I just want to explain that a little bit, and then I'll stop. And a little bit about Article 5 and about escalation. So the way Article 5 works, it's a mutual defence treaty. It is not what many people seem to believe. It is an agreement amongst all the members of NATO that if they are attacked, that they will all fight together and attack back. That is not what Article 5 is about. Article 5 is about defending, not about attacking. And I think a very good example, which I will use when I've got a bit more time, is Iceland. So Poland doesn't need Article 5. It's easily got all the resources it needs to shoot down these decoys and the drones. So we only call Article 5 if it's not able to do it itself. So it's not about the level of how major the thing is. It's about whether the country can handle it by itself, or it needs the other people in NATO to help it. So Poland is never going to need Article 5 for drones. But now take an example of, say, Iceland. And imagine geography was just a little bit different somehow, and Iceland was much closer to Russia, and that for some reason there were dozens of drones flying over Iceland. And Iceland said, look, 10 drones have gone flying over Iceland. We're worried that these drones might hit our citizens. We're going to trigger Article 5 because Iceland is the one country in NATO that hasn't got the military at all. So I don't think Iceland's got anything that can shoot down drones. Correct me if I'm wrong. When I write up this example, I suppose I should double check that and see if they could shoot down drones. But I think they would depend on other countries to do that. Anyway, suppose it's a country that has not got the capabilities, hypothetically Iceland or some other country, for some reason it can't shoot down drones. Then Iceland would say, whether Iceland can do this or not, a hypothetical country that can't do that would say to the rest of NATO, look, we can't shoot down drones, we've got 10 drones, even 10 drones completely overwhelms our capability to shoot them down. Then in that situation, it would trigger Article 5. And then all its allies would then send it whatever is needed, which is not very much. They would say, thank you very much, thumbs up, you can get my thumbs up, you've given me what I want, I'm now safe from Russia, and that's the Article 5 situation over. That's how Article 5 works. So I hope that helps you to be a bit more understanding about what Article 5 is about. And if you can handle it yourself, then you call Article 4 instead if you want more advice and consulting with your neighbours. So it's possible Poland might call Article 4. It's possible they already have. I haven't checked the news. That's more commonly done. Article 5 has only been done once for 9/11. So, and it does not involve nukes, as you can see from that 9/11 example. Then I just want to say one other thing as an example, is that people have this idea of an escalation ladder. So when people talk about an escalation ladder, and the top is nuclear war, and the bottom is, it wouldn't be drones, those wouldn't even be on the ladder at all. I'm sure there's nothing formally written on the ladder about shooting down drones or shooting down balloons and things. But I suppose that I think near the bottom of the ladder would be something like shooting down a fighter jet. So remember that Pakistan, it shot down Indian fighter jets. And what happened there is that India didn't know or didn't allow for properly how far that Pakistan is the only country that, one of the main countries that China exports air defences to. China doesn't sell its advanced technology to Russia or North Korea. You know, people were talking about all that the other day. China doesn't help them, but it does help Pakistan. So Pakistan has got Chinese air-to-air missiles, and it's got Chinese fighter jets that fire Chinese air-to-air missiles. And India fired some missiles over the border into Pakistan, and Pakistan then shot down 3 Indian fighter jets. So if you were to believe the people online, then surely the next thing that India does is to launch all its nukes at Pakistan. But if you now stop and think, well, we're not talking about movies, we're not talking about video games, we're talking about real human beings. How does that make sense for India? And no, of course not. So India knew perfectly well that Pakistan was well within its rights to shoot down its fighter jets, because within the law of war. And it was just India's mistake that it flew too close to Pakistan. I didn't realise how vulnerable it was. It needs to be further away in future. So nothing happened. That was the end of the incident. India learnt its lesson, and it's not going to be flying its fighter jets so close to Pakistan fighter jets anymore. That's the end of the story. So it would be very much the same if there ever was a conflict of some sort between, but the NATO and Russia are so super careful. They're much more careful than Pakistan and India, and they're never going to permit this sort of conflict. The closest we got is when Turkey shot down a Russian fighter jet that took a little shortcut across a little bit of Turkey, and they were completely within their rights to do that. And very sadly, the fighter jet, when he was descending on his parachute, then he was killed by separatists below, not by Turkey. And that's against the law of war. They shouldn't have done that. But because he was no longer competent at that point. But then, so what does Russia do? Nothing. Russia protested rather weakly, and from the weakness of their protests, they likely knew that their fighter jet had actually flown over Turkey, and then it just fizzled out. It didn't really, wasn't much in the news at all. So that's what happens. So you've got this ladder, and it's got 40 rungs, or say, or 50 rungs, or 60 rungs, or whatever it is. Details are likely secret, but the whole point is the ladder to go down, down, down. You always go down. It's not a ladder that you go running up. It's not like you've gone up the first step of this ladder and you find you can't stop running and you go all the way up. It's not that sort of ladder at all. It's a ladder that you go down, always go down. And that's why we're so very safe, because you're never going to go up. Even if you go up one rung, then how do you get to the next rung? And how do you go to the next one after that, the next one after that? Every time you're going to be going down. And we have lots and lots of precautions and rules of engagement and so on to make sure that we do keep safe like this. So hopefully that helps you understand about escalation and about And this is about a previous example. So this was, just one more thing. There was this story, but a little while back, that this was a missile that came flying out of the Ukraine war, flew into Poland, and killed 2 people. So it sadly killed 2 people, and it damaged a farm and a tractor. And at the time, nobody knew if it was Russia or Ukraine. That didn't lead to... people again were telling me, look, this is going to lead to a world war, this is going to lead to a nuclear war, this is Article 5 and so on. No, of course not. There's a lot of diplomatic fuss. Eventually, it seems very likely that it was a Ukrainian air interceptor that actually was trying to shoot down a Russian drone or missile and missed, and then went on flying and landed in Poland and sadly killed 2 people. Sort of thing that happens during a war, sadly. So, because of political reasons, then there's a lot of bureaucracy, and Ukraine wanted to be able to inspect the debris itself, but there's just too much red tape, and they never did get to. So it's a little bit unsatisfactory. It's been left like that. That Poland determined that it was an air interceptor from Ukraine, and Poland just couldn't manage to get all the red tape sorted out to share what they had with Ukraine, because Poland is in NATO and Ukraine isn't. So that's basically what happened there. But it seems pretty likely it was a Ukrainian air interceptor. And so again, that's probably the most serious thing. That I think it's the only time that anyone has died outside of Ukraine as a result of the Ukraine war, sadly by a Ukrainian air interceptor killing them in the entire war. And of course that didn't lead to anything. And if it had been a Russian, suppose it had been a Russian missile, it wouldn't have led to anything. It wouldn't have led to... There's no point in Poland attacking Russia, because Russia killed a couple of Polish citizens clearly by mistake. So just think, we are human beings. Human beings, we can deal with fuzzy situations like this. We are careful, we're cautious. And even if you've got what most people would think is pretty insane objectives, but they're not really insanity. They've still got the ability, so we learn impulse control when we are age 3 or 4. And nobody is going to become a leader of a country if they are not able to just stop and think and be careful in a situation like this. And same for generals. Nobody's going to become a general. He's going to lose their job pretty quickly if not able to stop and think. And people will just say, well, what about Trump? Well, Trump is actually very controlled. He may not seem it, but he's got a point that he'll go to, but he won't go beyond it. So he has lots of grey area stuff. But he's an adult. He's not a child. He's not like a 3-year-old. He is actually really very controlled in his kind of very spontaneous kind of way. So, and then he's got all the apparatus of the United States Constitution and law and the justices and so on. Then he orders generals, and the generals are very controlled. You don't get to be a general without impulse control. So that's on the US side. And if you go on the Russian side, then Putin is extreme level of control. I've talked about that before, and this would end up being too long a video if I talk about that again. But so that's why I've talked about this many times before. I don't want to bore you, but so we're not at the risk of world war. We're moving in the other direction, and then you can go and look at this and why Putin will never use nukes. Why? Yeah, I've talked about it in that blog post. So you go and click through there and find out about all that if you haven't read about it before, and why we don't risk a world war. Now we know. Now we can know that. I don't want to go into all that again. I've just had it at the end of all my Russia videos now, because blog posts. So because otherwise I get asked the same questions over and over and over again, and giving those things at the end, then people can just click through, and then I no longer get people asking these questions, as long as I put that at the end of every post. If I don't do that, then people tend to say to me, but what happens if there's a world war, etc., over and over and over again. And those debunks they help most people. So anyway, hope this helps you all, and you're somewhat less scared about it all. Any questions, do say. And so I hope you understand the basic point, that this is a complete nothing burger, and if you can just begin to understand that the laws and basically the way that humans think, the things we set up, we care a lot about not starting a world war. We care a lot about not accidentally using nukes. We care a lot about keeping wars contained, about not escalating, and there have been numerous things put in place to stop these things. And even someone who's a dictator like Putin, he's part of this world, he's a human being, he has got all these things around him that he just takes for granted, that helps prevent having a nuclear war, and perhaps helps prevent having a world war. And that's why we're safe. And we're extremely safe. There are numerous precautions now, much more so than when I was, say, in my 30s or 40s, say, during the Cold War, or in my 20s, or in my teens, going back to the height of the Cold War. I think you might have to call my teens and my 20s more like the height of the Cold War. And not the height of the Cold War, that's the end of it. The height of it would be I've been quite a bit younger than that. So yeah, my teens maybe. So anyway, hope this helps you, and hope some of you to be a little bit less scared, and to realise this really is a complete nothing burger, and nothing's going to happen of it. There's going to be a lot of political fuss, there always is, and it's very likely just a mistake, because these drones, they're just not very good, and they can easily make mistakes like this. So anyway, look at the video description to find the link to this, and click to the link in the video description. You can come to the blog.